I've written this essay about petitioning the leaders of the European Union to peacefully and lawfully dismantle all the remaining monarchies in Europe. So, this essay is about petitioning the leaders of the European Union to peacefully and lawfully dissolve all the remaining monarchies in the whole continent of Europe. And this is my essay on such issue. Away with all the remaining monarchies in the Western Hemisphere. The remaining constitutional monarchies in the Western Hemisphere should be abrogated peacefully and lawfully as soon as possible. Such monarchies only promote the notion that a privileged family, the monarchy, should have certain elitist access to things that should be available only to them and their close relatives. In other words, the notion of royalist elitism becomes accepted as a state responsibility that should be upheld at any cost. Such institution curtails the notion of fairness before the law. That means the members of the royalty and their immediate relatives can get away with the law if the monarch wishes to. With that, the common people living under a constitutional monarchy would not be favored by the law if ever they come into legal conflict with any of the members of the royalty or of the immediate relatives of the particular royal family, even if the Constitution guarantees equal treatment in front of legal proceedings. It can be said that the members of the royal family and their immediate relatives can serve above the law if the monarch wishes so. Such is a disgrace to democratic principles. Another thing with constitutional monarchism in the Western Hemisphere is that psychological racism is somehow promoted and instilled upon the minds of the subjects of the British monarchy. Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Bahamas, Jamaica, and others are nations that still have the British monarch as their sovereign head of state. That means the non-Anglo-Saxon ethnicities in countries which have the British monarch as their head of state would never have a chance of electing or getting elected as the head of state, simply because the sovereign position of becoming as a head of state strictly belongs to the Windsors. The House of Windsor is definitely white and truly Anglo-Saxon. No black person in Jamaica, even though the majority of the people there are blacks, would become head of state. No Maori person, even though the first civilized settlers in New Zealand were the non-white Maoris. The Maoris are basically an Asian people. Yes, they are. Would have the chance of becoming the head of state of New Zealand. That means no Maori would have the chance of becoming the head of state of New Zealand. And it's no wonder that a French Canadian from Quebec would never have the opportunity of becoming the head of state of Canada, since such position exclusively belongs to the Anglo-Saxon House of Windsor. The British monarchy in those mentioned countries has the sole capability of producing the head of state. Hence, the idea that only the white Anglo-Saxon race has the sole responsibility to produce a head of state from them or for them, rightly or wrongly, is hovering over and above the minds of the citizens of these mentioned countries. I'll say it again. The idea that only the white Anglo-Saxon race has the sole responsibility to produce a head of state for them, rightly or wrongly, is hovering over and above the minds of the citizens of those mentioned countries. A wealthy businessman from a democratic republic who suddenly becomes bankrupt will lose his wealth and luxurious privileges, while the monarch, and I am referring to the sovereign living in a country under a constitutional monarchy, who suddenly becomes bankrupt, still have the state to lean upon, so that the wealth that he had lost will be returned back to him in full under state subsidiary. In other words, the state provides the guarantee of securing the wealth and luxuries of the monarchy, and it's very expensive for the state to maintain the luxuries of a constitutional monarchy. In other words, the notion of equal opportunities under democratic principles is debased by the institution called constitutional monarchy. The institution called constitutional monarchy also hinders the members of the nobility and the royal family from becoming actual governmental leaders themselves. Yes, the nobles and the members of the royal family have certain exclusive privileges, but they are hindered by their own constitution from being elected as actual legislators and government leaders. They themselves, the nobles and the members of the royal family, are somehow residing under a psychological prison of limitations. Hence, the institution called constitutional monarchy thus sets certain regulations that hinder the development of career opportunities for a certain class of people. Such system is anti-democratic. Lastly, constitutional monarchism threatens democratic rule itself. The citizens of a country which has a constitutional monarchy do face the threat that somehow their constitutional monarch would become more aggressive in demanding exclusive privileges up to the point of becoming an absolutist ruler. All of the so-called constitutional monarchs in Europe do have reserved powers as guaranteed by their respective constitutions that may actually grow into absolutism. Hence, the actual threat of Britain having an absolutist or despotic monarch in some future time is real. Such may also happen to the other countries in the Western Hemisphere that still have an institution called constitutional monarchy. So again, the actual threat of Britain having an absolutist or despotic monarch is real if it would happen in some future time. It might happen. Such may also happen to the other countries in the Western Hemisphere that do have an institution called constitutional monarchy. It's high time now for the leaders of the European Union or EU to peacefully and lawfully dissolve the remaining constitutional monarchies in Europe. The office of the head of state should be made available to all classes, racial groups, and ethnicities within a society. I repeat, it's high time now for all the leaders of the European Union to peacefully and lawfully dissolve the remaining constitutional monarchies in Europe. The office of the head of state should be made available to all classes, racial groups, and ethnicities within a society. The EU leaders should now peacefully and lawfully dismantle the last emblem of semi-feudalism, namely constitutional monarchy, in the whole continent of Europe. The dismantling should begin now. Political abrogationism advocates the peaceful and lawful dismantling of all types of monarchies in the whole world. Political abrogationism merely preaches the reality that democracy and all known civil and human rights are natural and universal to the whole humanity of this globe. I believe that all human beings in this world have the same amount of civil and human rights. I'll say it again. I do believe that all human beings in this world have the same amount of civil and human rights. It is only proper that every human organization in this globe, from a family to a nation, should guarantee the protection of all known civil and human rights. Hence, every social organization in this world should clamor peacefully and lawfully for a democratic leadership. Political abrogationism is advocating such concern.